My name is Leo, and my life officially ended on a completely ordinary Tuesday afternoon. If anyone ever tries to tell you that university housing actually cares about its students, look them dead in the eye and tell them they are lying. I was sitting at my tiny, cheap desk trying to cram for an organic chemistry midterm when I heard a strange dripping noise. Before I could even stand up, a massive pipe burst in the ceiling right above my head. Within seconds, a torrent of dirty, freezing water flooded my cramped dorm room. Everything I owned, my laptop, my textbooks, my only good winter coat, and weeks of careful notes, was completely soaked and ruined. When I dragged my dripping wet self down to the housing office, the clerk didn't even look up from her computer. She just handed me a sleek black keycard with a bright red sticker on it, mumbled a half-hearted apology, and said, "Sorry, we're putting you in temporary housing until the maintenance team can gut your floor." I grabbed my single remaining duffel bag and walked across campus, expecting to be thrown into a moldy basement broom closet. Instead, the elevator took me all the way to the top floor of the newest luxury building on campus. I scanned the card, the door chimed, and I stepped into room 1001. My jaw literally dropped. It was a massive, pristine penthouse suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city skyline, complete with sleek leather couches and a designer kitchen. I thought I had accidentally struck absolute gold. I thought the universe was finally paying me back for my terrible luck. Until the bathroom door clicked open. Standing there, casually drying his damp hair with a white towel, was Simon. Yes, that's Simon. The engineering department's ultimate golden boy. The billionaire heir to the university's primary funding board. The untouchable, ice-cold campus prince that every single student was secretly obsessed with. He was wearing nothing but a loose, dark black silk robe that hung loosely off his shoulders. His sharp, forest green eyes locked onto mine, and the air in the room instantly turned to ice. He looked at me like I was a disgusting insect that had just crawled under his door. Simon glared down his nose at me and spoke in a low, terrifyingly icy voice. "Who gave you permission to breathe the air in this room? Turn around and leave before I have security throw you out." I panicked, clutching my duffel bag like a shield, and stammered, "I am so sorry. The housing office sent me. My room flooded completely, and they assigned me here temporarily, I swear. Look, I can be completely invisible. I can sleep on the hardwood floor by the door. I won't touch a single thing. I won't eat your food, and I won't even look at you. Please, I have nowhere else to go, and my midterm is tomorrow." Simon didn't move. He just stared at me for what felt like an eternity, evaluating my pathetic state. Finally, he stepped closer, bringing the scent of expensive cologne and fresh rain into my personal space. He pointed a sharp, dominant finger right at my face. He said in a cold, commanding tone, "Fine, but we have strict rules here. Rule 1, don't touch my things. Rule 2, don't look at me or speak to me unless I speak to you first. And Rule 3, if you ever tell a single soul on campus that we breathe the same air, I will make sure you are expelled by morning. Understand?" And just like that, my exhausting double life began. On campus, we were complete and total strangers. It was surreal. I would sit in the back of the lecture halls and watch from afar as massive crowds of fangirls, campus clubs, and elite professors constantly hovered around him, begging for a single second of his precious attention. He always wore a flawless charcoal gray designer suit, giving everyone the exact same polite, perfectly rehearsed, but incredibly distant smile. He looked like an untouchable god on campus. But the very second that heavy penthouse door locked behind us at night, the perfect prince completely disappeared, and a totally different, terrifyingly unpredictable Simon took his place. For the first few days, I tried my absolute best to live like a ghost. One night, around 2 in the morning, I was sitting quietly at the kitchen island. I was exhausted, trying to silently eat a cheap cup of instant ramen so I wouldn't make any noise to disturb his sleep. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a strong hand firmly gripped the hood of my oversized cream sweatshirt and pulled me backward. I nearly choked on my noodles. Simon stood over me, his forest green hair a little messy, looking deeply irritated. He snapped in a deep, gravelly voice, "Are you seriously eating that toxic garbage in my kitchen again? Get up and sit down at the dining table right now." I stumbled over my own feet as he practically dragged me over. My eyes went wide. Spread across the massive dining table was a full, steaming, gourmet three-course meal. I was completely flustered and asked, Simon? Did you cook all of this? What? Simon sat down right next to me. He didn't sit across the table. He sat so close that his arm was practically brushing against mine. He pushed a beautifully plated dish into my hands, crossed his arms, and looked away with a visible scowl. He grumbled, I accidentally made too much. Eat it. And stop sitting all the way over in the dark like a kicked puppy. You look completely ridiculous trying to hide from me every single night. That was the exact moment I realized something utterly terrifying about the campus prince. Simon didn't actually hate me. It was much worse than that. Beneath his cold, untouchable public mask, he was secretly, incredibly needy. He absolutely despised being alone. In fact, as the days went on, his behavior only grew stranger. He completely banned me from studying at my small desk. Every single evening, the moment I opened a textbook, he would grab his own materials, march over to the living room couch, and sit right next to me. He would sit so close that I could feel the heat radiating off his body. He would lean over my shoulder, pointing out formulas in my book, his breath ticking the back of my neck, while my heart practically beat out of my chest. I thought I was doing a good job keeping our arrangement a secret, but the fragile piece completely shattered when Kaido entered the picture. Kaido was a popular star athlete from my major study group. Loud, constantly smiling, friendly, and totally oblivious to my complicated living situation. One evening, after a grueling 4-hour study session at a crowded campus cafe, Kaido insisted on walking me all the way back to my residential building. As we reached the front gates, Kaido laughed loudly at a joke I made and casually threw a heavy, warm, incredibly familiar arm tightly around my shoulders. Kaido smiled warmly and said, Man, Leo, you're seriously the best. I always have a blast with you. We should definitely grab coffee again this weekend. Just you and me, all right? I'll text you the details later. I gave a nervous, high-pitched laugh, gently slipping out from under his arm, and said, Yeah, sure, Kaido. Thanks for walking me back. See you in class. I ran inside, having no idea that from the high, darkened penthouse balcony upstairs, a pair of sharp forest green eyes had been tracking every single second of that interaction. The moment I stepped through the penthouse door, the lights were completely off. The apartment was dead silent. I fumbled along the wall for the light switch, but before my fingers could even touch the plastic, a heavy shadow slammed over me. Simon violently forced his hand against the wall right next to my head, pinning me firmly against the dark entryway. He was breathing heavily, his tie completely loosened, and his grip on my wrist was so tight it actually hurt. I gasped, my heart racing in pure fear. Simon, what are you doing? Let go, you're hurting my wrist. Simon leaned down, his eyes flashing with a terrifying, dark jealousy in the shadows. He growled, Who was that guy? The athlete outside. Why was his arm wrapped around you like he owns you? I stammered. That's just Kaido. He's just a friendly guy from my chemistry class. He was just being nice. I swear. Suddenly, my phone lit up in my hand. It was a text message from Kaido saying he couldn't wait for the weekend. Before I could even read it, Simon snatched the phone right out of my fingers. His face twisted into pure rage as his eyes scanned the glowing screen. He hissed, Delete his number. Right now? Block him. If you don't do it, I will make sure he never speaks to you again. I was completely shocked and finally snapped. Simon, you are being completely insane. You are the one who said you didn't want anyone on campus to know we even exist in the same space. Why do you suddenly care who walks me home or who texts me? Simon leaned in even closer, his lips almost brushing my ear as he whispered darkly, Because you live here. With me. I don't care about campus. But the moment you walk through that door, you belong in this room. Why are you letting other people touch what is mine? His possessive words echoed in my head for 3 straight days. I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't breathe around him anymore. The tension was suffocating. So, when the housing office finally called me on Friday afternoon to tell me that my old, cheap dorm room was completely fixed and ready for move-in, I felt a massive wave of relief. But deep down, it was mixed with a heavy, painful ache in my chest. Simon was supposed to be away all evening attending an elite university charity gala. I used his absence to quickly pack my single duffel bag, scrub my side of the penthouse clean, and drag my feet to the entrance. I placed my hand on the doorknob, taking one long, final look at the beautiful luxury suite. It was time to go back to reality. It was time to forget about the prince. But just as I turned the handle, the door was violently slammed open from the outside, knocking me backward. Simon stood in the doorway. He looked completely unhinged. His expensive formal gala suit jacket was thrown open. His green hair was wildly messy, and he was panting heavily as if he had sprinted across the entire university campus just to get here. He stared at my bag, his chest heaving with fury. "Where do you think you're going with that?" I kept my voice as steady as possible, though my hands were shaking. "My old room is fixed, Simon. I'm moving back out today. Thank you for letting me stay here, but it's time for me to go." Simon didn't say another word. He violently kicked my duffel bag across the polished floor, stepped inside, and slammed the heavy penthouse door shut behind him. The loud click of the deadbolt echoed through the silent apartment. He pulled the key from the lock and slid it deep into his pocket. Then, he stepped directly into my personal space, towering over me, backing me up against the wall until there was absolutely nowhere left for me to run. My heart was hammering violently against my ribs. "Simon, give me the key. Unlock the door and let me leave." Simon looked down at me, his eyes dark, desperate, and entirely consumed by an intense possessiveness. He whispered, "No, I am never unlocking this door for you." I stared at him, wide-eyed and trembling. "What do you mean? You can't keep me here." His voice broke slightly as his fingers reached out, gently but unyieldingly gripping my chin and tilting my face up to force me to look at him. He said, "You think you can just wander into my isolated life, disrupt my entire routine, make me look forward to coming home every single night, and then just casually walk away? You think I'm going to let you go back to some crowded, broken dorm room where anyone can touch you, look at you, or take you away from me?" Simon's face was inches from mine, completely trapping me in his space. He spoke with soft, terrifying, but absolute control. "You're never leaving this penthouse, Leo. I already called the housing office. Your contract with the old building is permanently canceled. From now on, you stay right here, locked in with me." As my mind whirled in a mix of shock, fear, and a strange, undeniable heat blooming in my chest, I looked into the eyes of the untouchable campus prince who had completely lost his mind over me. I finally realized the absolute truth. My secret roommate wasn't just needy. He was completely obsessed, and he was never, ever going to let me go. It has been 3 months since that night, and as it turns out, Simon wasn't bluffing. My old dorm room was completely reassigned, my name was officially added to the penthouse lease, and my life changed forever. I went from a broke, stressed-out student to living in absolute luxury, entirely trapped by the campus prince. At first, I thought I would feel like a prisoner, but the reality of living with an obsessed Simon is surprisingly sweet. Every morning, I wake up to the smell of a gourmet breakfast that he personally prepares. On campus, we still play our little game. He walks through the halls in his flawless charcoal suits, looking cold, untouchable, and distant to the rest of the world. No one dares to approach him. But now, whenever he passes by me in the crowded courtyard, he subtly slows his pace. His forest green eyes will catch mine for a fraction of a second, and a tiny, private smile will play on his lips, a look meant absolutely and entirely just for me. The best part, though, is coming home. The second the penthouse door locks behind us at night, the ice-cold prince instantly melts away. Just yesterday, I was sitting on our massive living room couch, completely buried under a mountain of flashcards for my upcoming finals. Suddenly, a heavy weight dropped right next to me. Before I could say a word, Simon slid his arms tightly around my waist from behind, pulling my back flush against his chest. He buried his face into the crook of my neck, letting out a long, contented sigh. His forest green hair was soft against my cheek. I laughed a little, trying to turn over, and said, "Simon, come on, let go for a second. I really need to memorize these chemistry structures, or I'm going to fail." Simon only tightened his grip, his arms locking around me like a human straitjacket. He murmured against my skin in a deep, entirely relaxed voice, "No, you've been staring at those cards for 3 hours. Look at me instead. I can just tutor you later anyway." I turned my head to glare at him, but my face instantly flushed bright red. He was looking up at me with an expression so soft, so deeply affectionate, and so completely full of love that it made my heart skip a beat. I sighed, completely giving up, and leaned back into his warm embrace. You are ridiculously needy, you know that, right? Simon leaned up, his lips brushing against mine in a gentle, lingering kiss that left me completely breathless. He smiled against my lips, his forest green eyes sparkling with absolute happiness. He whispered, I told you, Leo. You belong in this room, and I am never letting you go. Looking around our beautiful home, feeling the steady, protective beat of his heart against my back, the initial panic of being trapped completely faded away. I might have started out as a victim of a terrible housing glitch, but standing here in the arms of the boy who loves me more than anything else in the world, I knew I was exactly where I was always meant to be. I was locked in, completely safe, and happier than I had ever been in my entire life.